Many of our speakers have mentioned that many people are leaving the cities, but I think that's a temporary type of blip because let's not forget why people live in cities in the first place. Um, so Tumble, Iowa does not have a ballet company, nor does it have world-class museums. It doesn't have world-class restaurants, and the list goes on and on and on. So the reason why people live in big cities is to take advantage of all the cultural amenities that they offer. And for some people, it's not important. For some people, they would be happy living in a log cabin in the middle of a forest. But there's many people that don't want to live in a log cabin in the middle of the forest. They want to go, to a Thai restaurant tomorrow and a Moroccan restaurant the next day. They want to attend a play. They want to go to a lecture on maybe the effect of COVID on the economy and things like that at the 92nd Street Y in New York City and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm sure there are people experimenting with like, let's go just leave the city and live on the land and this kind of stuff. But you know what?
From one point of view, create a lot of problems, but from the other point of view, create a lot of opportunities. And we have to look in that way. We have to look at the opportunities that the COVID-19 crisis has opened up. Uh, Actually, what happened changed the rule of the game. A lot of requirements, technologies, and needs were, if not abandoned, at least superseded by new ones, that has to answer to the new request, to the new requirement, to the new needs.
The pandemic has created plenty of new problems to solve, plenty of new ways to think about what the world is going to look like, what our cities and our offices and our countries and the world is going to look like. So it's not only kind of created new challenges, but also caused a lot of thinking. And thinking and change, leads to entrepreneurship and business development. I think if we look back at history, we see every great.
I tend to think about entrepreneurship in terms of the innovation ecosystem that I think is necessary for generating technological progress. And that innovation ecosystem definitely needs entrepreneurs and venture capitalists. But it also needs a well-funded education system, a social welfare model that supports risk-taking. A lot of the research on entrepreneurship shows that it's really the top 5% or 1% of people advantaged by wealth and education who have the opportunity to become entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. Echoing some of what Giorgio said, I think in any crisis, there is equal parts opportunity and danger. And it is something we've seen a lot of, in particular here in the United States, when it comes to business, self-employment, and entrepreneurship. You know, what we saw in particular here in the US last year was a massive quarter over quarter jump from Q2 to Q3. I think it was over 77%. In people applying for small business licenses. So that's definitely something that a lot of maybe previous workers realized that, a lot of their jobs might not be coming back after some of the mass layoffs that occurred or that affected them. And so a lot of them decided to be their own boss and start their own small business or startup even. And I think we'll continue to see that. Americans are widely known typically for having a side hustle. And I think a lot of them decided to go all in particular once they didn't have, as they saw it at the time, other avenues to support themselves or their families. So I think first and foremost, I think a lot of those small businesses are here to stay. I think another massive shift that we're seeing, one of the previous trends that we saw here in the US in particular, and even around the world, was the gig economy.
So Giorgio and Nigel talked about the effects of the COVID, comparing it to war, and I have to agree. Just yesterday, I watched some videos from a real estate agent in New York City describing the effects of the pandemic and the resulting lockdowns on New York, which is probably not the political, but the cultural and financial capital of the United States. Basically, he's saying New York is being depopulated. And that's reflected for the first time ever in vacancy rates in apartments in New York City that are 30, 40, 50%, which is just unprecedented. Never in the history, the 250 plus year history of New York City, have you seen the city being depopulated this way.
What I think is at least equally interesting is the changes it's going to make. And this is, I'm picking up Giorgio's point here. I mean, this is certainly as dramatic as the Second World War for all sorts of reasons. And there is going to be a fundamental impact. I mean, in a sense, at one level, there's been an accelerator. I mean, goodness gracious me, this has taken us forward 10, 20 years in our use of things like Zoom. Never going to be the same. HSBC said the other day, they're cutting 40% of their global office space. 40% now, forever.